everyone, and welcome to the Snuffers Aftershow. My name is Elise Anderson, and tonight we're going to be talking about what went wrong for the sixth contestant eliminated on Survivor Game Changers. Joining me tonight is Snuffers panelist Ben. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing? Hi, friends. Hi, everyone.
I am still in mourning, but hence why the black. But
you can't you have to give a long period of time to get over royalty passing on. So I get it. We're probably going to be there for a little while.
I'm just going to wear this outfit for the rest of the season. Like, that's what's going to happen.
But this is 94 days in the making, so understandable.
True. And we are also joined by our special guest, Sarah. Sarah, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm actually on top of the world that Sandra is gone, and I am surprised she even lasted as long as she did.
So we are going to be having some debate this episode. I love it. As previously mentioned, we are going to be talking about the great Queen Sandra Diaz-Twine, who was eliminated on episode 5, Survivor Game Changers, tragically. And what's unique, yes, 3 times. That's how tragic it was. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about, I don't know, let's start by talking, we have a lot to cover with Sandra because she was a 2-time winner. She made it to the end in both her former seasons, and she still made it pretty far this season. So let's go back all the way to Pearl Islands, Sandra's very first season. I think Pearl Islands is one of my favorite seasons, so I rewatch it a lot. Very first episode, we see her like bartering with the townspeople in Panama, talking about how the townskeeper, the lady liked Trish in a sexual way, and we're already introduced to the great personality of Sandra. Ben, I know you're a Sandra fan. What did you think of her, I don't know, was her loudmouthness in her personality in Pearl Islands? Is it different from nowadays? Has she evolved as like a personality?
I would say it was more subdued in the past. I think as she's evolved in Survivor, she's been able to, like, being given more of a character emphasis. Like, let's be honest, Sandra was entertaining in her first season, but she was by no means someone that was centrally highlighted. And now you have Game Changers where, let's be honest, a good majority of the pre-merge has been focused around Sandra. So that goes to the evolution of Sandra.
Yeah, I get both as a personality and as a player. I think in Pearl Islands, she was pretty understated. I know a lot of people didn't have her very high in their winner rankings, like, oh, it just happened that she won. Sarah, were you one of those people? Did you get Sandra's game? She's anyone but me, her famous mantra, started in Pearl Islands. What did you think of her then and compared to now?
So I was a Sandra fan, definitely in Pearl Islands. She was very understated. She went kind of back and forth from being like at the bottom to at the middle-ish, back and forth. And I remember at the end, people thought that, she wasn't going to win. But Lillian had it in the bag because she was so nice. Everyone's going to vote for her. And then I think Sandra won 6-1 that year. I liked her that season, and like as Ben mentioned, the evolution of her character and this personality of Sandra the Queen happened a lot in the Heroes versus Villains and now into the season, and that's when I have become less of a Sandra fan.
So you like Sandra 1.0 better than Sandra 2.0 and 3.0? Why? Just because she didn't play up this big character as much? Or
I think so. I think I liked her edit in Pearl Islands. I think she played a little bit, or however they showed it, she played it a little bit better or a little bit more understated, but she got so cocky in that second and third season, and that's where I just was like, I'm done. I'm over her.
And yeah, let's move on. So she won Pearl Islands by a lot over Lil. She didn't do that many big moves in that season. Her one big move, I think, was getting rid of Burton and then letting that be getting rid of Fair Play, that 2 kind of move to get her to the end with Lil, who was not going to get any votes against her. So she comes into Heroes versus Villains a lot later. She's not one of those players who comes back immediately. She didn't come back for All Stars. And so we see her once again on Heroes versus Villains. Sarah, did you think she was gonna win Heroes versus Villains, first of all? Like day one, episode 1. Do you think she had a shot?
She was not my day one episode 1 winner pick. I figured she might make it a little bit further. I remember feeling like the Villains tribe might make it a little bit further in once you get to the merge and past that, because they're not afraid to be cutthroat. But I don't think she wasn't my top pick then either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so however, what happened is, like, at first there was this big Russell versus Rob thing. Sandra's with Rob. She ends up being the only person who survives kind of the Rob group. As they get to the merge, it's all Russell's people. And then she keeps trying to work with the other side, but they don't really want to work with her. And she ends up in the final 3 with Russell and Parvati and all the heroes on the jury. And she manages to win again. Like, Ben, what did you think of her gameplay that season? Do you think it was better than Pearl Islands? Worse? What did you think?
I think that she had to do more in order to get a victory in Heroes versus Villains. And I think that goes a lot to her being able to gauge where everybody as a whole is at in the game. Because when it comes down to it in Heroes versus Villains, villains ultimately exterminate the heroes. And 2 of the 3 were very active and very alienated by those at the other tribe, while Sandra was actively trying to build bridges, which automatically shows that she put in the effort to be able to get that victory, whereas Parvati and Russell both are burning their bridges and working actively to get everyone out. And at the same time, you also have to acknowledge the fact that when she was on the pre-merge, she was with Courtney smack dab on the bottom. Like, she was, heaven forbids if they went to another tribal before merge, like Sandra could have very much have pieced out. So like, it has a testament to her ability to try and work both ways and change and work in the ever-changing dynamic of the game.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of vibe I got from Sandra 1.0 and 2.0, is that she was very opportunistic. And I think a lot of people held that against her in Heroes versus Villains. Lots of people were like, oh, Russell should have won, Parvati should have won because they did more in the game, whereas Sandra just kind of took advantage of the fact of how the merge was set up. But fair to her, or Sarah, what do you think? Because I know you're not a big Sandra 2.0 fan.
Yeah, and so thinking back now, you know, it did downhill a little bit because of that play, but it was smart as on her as well to build those bridges while everybody was burning them. But I don't know, I've been as big of a villain as she is. Parvati's one of my top people that I've just always loved watching play. And so anybody who's beating Parvati in my mind, I'm like, no, I don't like you.
Did you even like Parvati in Exile? I mean, Cook Island, sorry.
I don't know. I just love her.
Okay, so everybody has an evolution, is what we're saying.
Yes, of course, yes. And Sandra definitely did have her evolution to 2.0, and it was less favorable to me than her 1.0, and then 3.0 just was no.
Yeah, so, but I feel like going to this season, Sandra, a lot of people were upset, Sandra fans were upset to see her back again because they're like, oh, perfect record, how could she do this? I think Sandra's a genuine Survivor fan, which is why it couldn't matter if she won 5 times in a row and she was coming back, she would still do it. But I get the sense this season, she really played up this, I'm the queen, I am here. And do you think, Ben, that had part to do with the fact that people were mad that she lost to Parvati's and Russell's in Heroes vs. Villains? Or was there
I think that Sandra went in knowing, like, 2-time winner, only one in history. You can only ride this ship as long as you can. She is an avid Survivor fan. Like, she's so much of a fan. She's been, like, we've gone 20 minutes in. She's been on our podcast. She was on our podcast last season. Like, we need to preface. By the way, she loves the game of Survivor so much that she actively works with the Survivor fan community to be able to discuss her experience and the experience of the current season of Survivor, which I think is really awesome. I think it's that love of the game that drives her to continue playing. Even when from a realistic standpoint, you know that she ain't got a bad chance in hell of winning. I think, like, when it comes down to it, you have a 2-time winner. Nobody's ever going to be able to point a bigger finger than saying she hasn't won just once. She's won twice. Like, there may be like 6 or 7 winners in this season. Homegirl has played 80 some odd days without getting voted out. That's 2 seasons without getting voted out in a row. Like, the fact that she made it to episode 5 is a testament to show that she's able to deflect. Like, she played drastically different than she played in previous seasons. She played very aggressively, and I think that's because she felt she needed to, because she wasn't going to get this under the radar, being able to point the finger at other people and say they're more of a threat. She was able to do that for a round or two while they voted out other winners. The other 2 tribals she went to, who were voted out? Winners of Survivor. Tony was voted out, JT was voted out. She was able to point that finger for as long as she could. She can't last on that.
Yeah, I'm a huge Sandra fan, and I kind of loved her this season in a different way that I loved her in previous seasons, because previous seasons we saw her be under the radar. Even coming into Heroes versus Villains, like I said, people didn't really consider her that great of a winner, and so she wasn't on people's radars as much. This season, she's won twice. I was expecting her to be the first boot, and I was going to cry in the premiere, and it was going to be terrible. But the thing is, I feel like Sandra realized that. She knew that was going to happen, and she ended up kind of being so loud and so talking about how you're going to win the game and you're going to do it with Sandra, that she almost flew over the radar so much that she was under the radar again. Do you agree with that, Sarah? I know you have a different view. Do you think she was just doing it out of, I don't know?
So I agree with it. I think she knows that she knew she wasn't going to win again. And I think going into it, she played aggressively, because if she had a chance to get anywhere, she had to play aggressively. I have a heart for the underdogs. And so I think that's where my malice towards Sandra comes from. And so the Malcolm episode, the JT, like that stuff, like it broke my heart seeing them leave. Because I am like,
good guy bias. Good guy bias.
Good guy bias.
So you just don't like her character, like her archetype of the villain, because she was very much a villain this season. We saw out of everyone, she wanted to eat the freaking baby goat. Ben, what do you want to talk about? Sandra villain edit.
I want to jump onto that because, like, this also goes towards her progression, where in the first season, she won and we were very much like, she was very low key under the radar. Like besides maybe Jenna, the only type of very low key winner in Survivor's history at that time. And so when she got back for Heroes versus Villains, people were very much questioning, is she a hero or is she a villain? Like, she did the fish thing in Pearl Islands, but that's the only character flaw that we really saw out of her. And in that season, we really saw her as the underdog in the villains tribe. She was working with the heroes tribe. We kind of left the second season she was in, like, know what her alignment is, if she's really like a very like hero archetype, or if she's someone that is gonna go very ruthless if she needs to. And this season, I think it was kind of promulgated because of the fact that she came in as a character rather than as a player, in my opinion. Like, she came in, I think she came up feeling like she needed to be so proactive, and she playing this queen persona, which gave cadence for the first time where people were really like, oh yeah, Sandra is a villain. Yeah, Sandra is like someone is able to be seen in this way. Because, like, talking like realistically from the Survivor community, this is really the first time where we're able to clearly say that as compared to her previous 2 seasons.
I think that's a very good point. She really set herself up as this character. And we talked a little bit about this on the JT after show, but she could afford to do so. She could afford to try new things because she has $2 million in her bank account. She doesn't need.
She has $1,400,000 after taxes.
True. She's not Richard Hatch. But yeah, so she's already won. She can afford to do so. And she comes in, she has to know. And my fear going into this season was if she was on a tribe, we know Sandra sucks at challenges. She has not won an individual immunity challenge all the days she's been on Survivor. So my fear
94 days without an immunity.
Yeah. So she's never won this individual immunity challenge. So I'm like, this worst case scenario, her previous tribes, a big part of her success was because, like in Heroes versus Villains, one more tribal council she would have been out. She's so weak at challenges, and here she is losing all these challenges, and she's still staying around for 2 tribes of losing tribes. Sarah, do you think that was part of why she did it, or do you think, I don't know, people are just dumb and didn't want to vote her out?
I think that, I mean, part of the opportunity was there was always somebody worse. There was definitely that opportunity, and she's very good at manipulating, and it definitely came out this season. She's good at manipulating it to deflect off of her when there's a bigger target, which her specifically, I give props to the way that she does it. And, you know, it's sneaky and it's awful and it makes my skin crawl, but it works. And so I think that's what it was, is she had that opportunity. There was always something she could tweak to deflect it onto somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the Sandra master strategy. More so, you see a lot of players who have what they're going to do planned out from day 1 to day 39, or they'll have all these different ideas going around in their head. Sandra's really good at just tweaking one little thing and turning it to her advantage. Ben, I know you wanted to comment on Sandra's manipulation.
I just wanted to really more like expand on that, because it's really a testament to how good her strategy is so simplistic. That's why it works in Survivor. Don't let it be me. Like, everybody likes to state that that's how they want to play, but few can, because they get caught up in the dynamics that they throw while there. Sandra was very much hands off like that. But like, going to the point of her like being weak and be like, she was on 2 losing tribes. So like, realistically, she should have gone because she was those tribes, like an anchor in a negative way in terms of challenges. But when you look at it in Pearl Islands, you had Burton, who was going off, and then you had Michelle, who was useless. And so Sandra was able to get through until the outcasts were included, and that changed the dynamic of the game. And then she got to merge, where that turns into a blessing, where she's on the weaker side, keep her longer. The same can be said for Heroes versus Villains. When you really look at it, she's on a tribe, and she's unquestionably the weakest on that tribe, like without doubt. Like Randy on the Villains tribe is stronger than Sandra. But at the same time, you have Randy on the tribe, easy first vote, very like toxic. Then you have Tyson and Rob, who are in the minority at this point. Russell's trying to kingpin them out. Sandra is just laying low. And then at that point, she's able to coast through, thankfully, because of the timing of the merge. And at that point, she's able to reverse her position on still being in the Villains majority, while at the same time trying to work her way into the Heroes, which ultimately granted her the win. She didn't have this opportunity.
I was going to say, I think she did the exact same thing this season. We saw her, she should have been first boot on any tribe that she was on. We saw her take control of 2 losing tribes and not get voted out, even at the double tribal council. And I just think that people, when we talk about this episode, I think people just realized it, you know? Like, why do you think we saw another swap this episode, and this was the tribe? Third time was not the charm for Sandra, because I don't think there was anything she could do at that point.
She literally played the best way that she could have in that situation.
Sarah, anything you think she could have done once she's on this new tribe?
No, once I saw that it was only her and Werner on that tribe, and you have someone like Ozzy and someone like Zeke on that tribe with them, knowing that she's a really strong player, knowing and seeing how she's been playing and whatnot, I don't think that she stood a chance once she was in there. The only saving grace maybe was Ty being like paranoid beyond belief, but I think I think something happened that wasn't shown on TV, where they grounded Ty and said, no matter what, this is how we're voting. Like, no matter what, set it tribal. And I think that that's what saved her.
Yeah,
or didn't save her.
Doomed her.
Doomed her, yes.
Yeah, Ben, like, what do you think it made sense for the Zekes, for the Aussies of the world, to get rid of her? I know there was some talk, some people saying they're throwing the challenge, like,
I think that Zeke had one of the most memorable quotes when it comes down to it.
Mhm.
Sandra says that you can get her out at any time. Every person has said that has lost to Sandra Diaz Twine. When it comes down to it, that's the whole mentality when it has come to Sandra. She's not seen as that threat, so she goes under. And you don't realize it until she's been able to figure things out enough to get a win. They're just being Survivor fans and playing the correct game of cutting the head from the snake before cutting all of the limbs.
Yep. And I think if I remember correctly, Zeke was trying to, or had the mindset of wanting to make these power plays like that in his previous season, and now he actually had the ability to do so, and a tribe of people behind him being like, yes, let's do it. And so I think, looking down the road, if Zeke makes it further, him and or Ozzy could use this to their advantage of like, look at what I did. I cut the head off of the snake at this point.
And I think on the reverse of that, if Sandra had managed to survive this tribe, you can't let her get to the end. You couldn't let her get to the end anyway, but now she's like, oh yeah, I survived that. Like, look at what I did. So I think yeah.
I was gonna say, and I think that her surviving this one would have been purely because of Ty's paranoia. That's the only way she would have survived this tribal.
And she knew it. We saw her doing all that she could to egg that
was
on.
Like, if we could put a critique onto Sandra's gameplay this round, and she probably, like, realistically, she probably couldn't even see this from her perspective actually being there. Her best play was to work Ty instead of going after and doubling down on Ty to make him play the idols that could have been available because everyone thought he was the idol whisperer.
And he is the idol
doubling down on her. Doubling down on Ty would have been the best move from our perspective. But to realistically think that Sandra had that perspective, all she was hearing from the majority was, we're going to go after Ty because he can get idols really quickly, and we don't know if we can trust that. You're going to double down on any piece of information that says, get it away from me, because that's been her mantra the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, if people, like, if Sandra was able to know that Ty had 2 idols, like, people would be calling rigged production. Like,
Exactly.
You would have to be
everybody would have
psychic to know that.
Molotov cocktails for everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I think it was the right move for everyone. It's just she got screwed over by the tribe swap. It happens every season, and it's just unfortunate that it happened to the queen of Survivor. But I just want to take a moment before we wrap up to talk about Sandra overall. We talked a little bit about this on JT, how especially after Heroes versus Villains for JT, a lot of people felt like that ruined his legacy. Sandra, do you think this showing ruins her legacy? Because I personally think, if anything, it strengthened it. Ben, what do you think?
I don't think conceivably we're ever going to see a 2-time winner before. I think that's going to always be something that's going to go towards Sandra's legacy. I think this season was the first season where she came in knowing she had to actually play the game from the get-go. And she showed by surviving multiple tribal councils where she should have been the person voted out. She survived 2 tribal councils before this. I think it shows that for her to be able to survive, yes, we're going to look at this in 7 or 8 seasons. Like, Sandra was voted out pre-merge. Like, there goes Sandra. But at the same time, in this moment, she really was able to play to the best of her abilities, and she got screwed out by a twist, not because of any poor gameplay that she did. So in 3 seasons, how many questions can you really have on Sandra's gameplay? And can you really say that about anybody else in the history of Survivor?
No, I 100% agree. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree with everything that Ben said. I mean, I'm not a hater on Sandra. I just have what Ben called, I have good guy bias. I have hero bias. And so I think that this adds kind of a different leg of her legacy, like a different piece of it, because she has that 2 winner of like kind of being an playing under the radar person. But this season she came in knowing that she'd already won 2 seasons. She was going to have to do something different. And so this was okay, Sandra can play aggressively and she can kind of like twist the ways of the game a little bit in order to get as far as she can, because she came in knowing she was not going to win a third time.
Yeah, I think this just proves, if anything, because a lot of people had doubts that she was as great of a player to win twice even. I think, if anything, this just cements, we saw so much of Sandra, it just cements that she is capable of having this over-the-top, aggressive gameplay that we see to the cameras, because so much of her gameplay isn't seen, and this season, thankfully, we got to see it, even though it was cut short, and even though we were tragically robbed of a Sandra jury speech, which would have been amazing. But if no one has anything else to add, I think we've about done the Queen justice as much as we can for 30 minutes. I think we could talk all about her, maybe do like a 2-hour podcast all about Sandra Diaz Twine. But yeah, Ben?
I just want to say, like, one more time, like, thank you so much to Sandra herself, both for her performance in the last 3 seasons of Survivor, but also for being so gracious when it comes to being able to discuss the game of Survivor with people who love to watch it. Her being a guest in our last season of Survivor, like, she's one of the very few, like, especially with winners, she's one of the very, like, she's won twice and she's still willing to take time to talk about her experience and how Survivor has evolved with fanatics like us. So I want to give her the shout out that she deserves, because she really has been so awesome and coming on the podcast before and really being open about her experiences and stuff. So I think that's really great that she's been able to do that for us.
Yeah, like, even if you hate Sandra as a player, the fact that she's here willing to talk to the fans and she loves the game as much as we do, if not more, I think that's such a great thing to see in as a player. And Sandra, please come back to our podcast sometime. It was great to have you. I will link to the Sandra podcast in the description of this video. And without further ado, good night, everyone. It was great talking to you, Ben and Sarah. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And next week.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
Bye.